Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I'm once again delving into the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. And we're nearing the end of Season 5. We still got a handful more to go after this, but this is Episode 18, Humm. Now this is a typical sitcom filler-esque episode. And I'm going to be honest, this is one of those ones that was usually on the skip list, and rewatching it now, that has not changed. I mean, I would watch it occasionally, but other than if I'm going to be marathoning the whole show or a season of the whole show, I probably don't see myself watching this one again, other than like a couple fun moments. Because this is another episode that the season 6, first 6 years clip show introduced me to, and that's the main scene at the end of the episode. Now, before I get too far into the review, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. You want to continuously support the channel, go the Patreon route. You'll gain access to videos early, and you'll also be able to suggest topics for future videos. You just want to do a one-off support or a one-off request, go the PayPal route. Either way, your support is appreciated. And another little thing, if I seem a little irritated in this is the second time I've had to record this. I had to record it, and it was in the can, and then... stupid me, I forgot to edit it before I deleted the raw footage. I deleted it after I deleted the raw footage for the previous episode before this, which was my review of the June 13th, 2002 episode of SmackDown. I had forgotten that I didn't edit it together. And that one I was wearing my Undertaker shirt, and this one you see I'm wearing my Goku workout shirt. So, sorry if I do see I'm a little irritated or a little out of it on several points, or from what I remember in that one, if it seems subpar, but it's one of those things that, like, I gotta record it again. So it kind of does sap some of your energy, especially when you have ADHD, and sometimes you gotta get up the necessary energy in order to do something that seems like a chore. And as much as I love recording this series, when it's an episode like this, sometimes it's like, yeah, there's not really much to say about it. This is another Lou Schneider episode, so you know the dynamics between the families are going to be top-notch, but in the case of the plot, it's not really enough to save it, because get out of the way, as a whole, this episode feels more like an episode that should have taken place in the first 2 seasons, maybe the beginning of season 3 at most. But this late in the show, it feels like an idea that they had before, but they turned it down, and then once they got here and they needed to fill up an episode slot, they're like, alright Lou, that idea you had about the vacuum, we'll do that now. Not to say there aren't good little moments here and there, but as a whole, it's like, feels a little too late. And it's that whole thing of what's worse, something you hate or something that's just there. And in this case, probably something that's just there, even though there are moments that do lead to some laughter. Now, the plot of the episode is that we begin with Ray and Robert sitting in Ray's living room watching TV. They get into a little argument about who's gonna be answering the door. Leads to a little bit exchange. One of these days I'll have a satellite dish and you won't see me no more. Well, they answered the door, and on the other side is a saleswoman named Carol, played by Trisha O'Kelly, and she's selling the Humm vac, which is a new vacuum that instead of a bag, or later on the whole little center thing that you can clean out, it's powered by suction, no vacuum, but this whole little thing is, it has a reservoir. So you could see how dirty the house is just by looking at all the dirt that goes in the reservoir. Well, she's a great salesman. Now the thing is, she had already come to the Barone house days before, and Debra had shot it down hard. And Ray remembers that, but he doesn't remember the rest of what she said, which is one of the fun little moments. But Ray, for lack of a better term, gets suckered in, and he decides to buy it. So when Debra shows up, she sees him vacuuming. And with how Ray Romano plays this off, I'm actually surprised they haven't gotten him into infomercials. Because he's got that perfect voice, especially with how his acting skills had improved by this point in the show, to where he could sell something. It's the way that sells it is the way that when he's trying to show the appliance off to Debra and she's not liking it, and he's like, still skeptical, Mrs. Barone. Just the way he says it. What really sells it, though, to Debra is when he shows her how much dirt she's been missing with a normal vacuum, and she's like, oh! Now, Ray's really having fun with this vacuum. You can tell he's finally found an appliance he loves using, which I do kind of get. I mean, with me, my whole thing is, like, I have to get into the right mindset in order to get up and start vacuuming, but once I'm in the zone, oh yeah, vacuuming, vacuuming. It's mainly moving the stuff around it, but watching Ray do it here in the house and all that, it's like, oh yeah, that does look like fun. And what adds to it is what Debra says to him, and that is, I have never been more attracted to you right now. And it seems like everything's going good, and that all goes right into the dumper once Marie comes over, and we find out that the only reason Carol came back was because Marie had turned down the vacuum but said, you know, that place across the street wouldn't need it. So once again, Marie butting in and implying that Debra doesn't keep a good house. And this is the main reason why I think this should have been further back in the timeline and not at this point. Now, those of you who have been watching this series, whether off and on or religiously from week to week, know that there is a phrase I always like to apply whenever there's a weird little writing mechanic that they do in this type of show that you're not really going to see in other shows, especially early 2000s later, where they start to care a lot more about continuity. I mean, they cared about continuity in certain shows before this, but sitcoms seem to be the one where it's like a loose continuity. They'll bring up something if it's important, usually in dialogue, to make a callback. You know, to steal a line from George Lopez so that the long-term fans could be, you remember? But there wasn't like a lot of episodes that followed one to another. I mean, there'd be big beats, and if you showed them in syndication, you could follow those ones. But if you don't know the correct order of the show, you might get confused. Like I mentioned a couple times, I was when I was watching these episodes in syndication. And of course, that phrase is sitcom writing. And this is a good example of it, the relationship between Marie and Debra, and how Marie seems to take one step forward, but then once the status quo was soft reset by the time the next episode is, it went a step back. And sometimes it goes 2 steps back. And as the old country song says, 1 step forward and 2 steps back, you can't get too far like that. And with something like this, where Marie keeps implying that Debra doesn't keep a clean house, now she says it is an insult slightly, but then she's like, there are no spare minutes. Which is like, why do you keep making the implications? Stop it. I mean, we saw in the early on that she loved Debra, so I don't really get why she keeps doing this other than the fact that she feels she's obligated to be snippy as the mother-in-law. Just one of those things of like, oh my God, Marie. Well, get back into the plot. Debra takes the vacuum across the street and offers to vacuum the house after she has a little heart-to-heart with Marie involving what I just mentioned. You know, it sounds like you're implying I don't keep a good house. So she's looking for dirt, and she finds none. But that's because we know that Marie vacuums a lot. As she said in another episode, she'll empty the bag and go again. Now, I'm all for keeping a clean house, but the way that that Marie goes to it, it's an insane level. It's like, really, Marie? You gotta vacuum that much? But of course, Debra also is taking it to an insane level and trying to prove Marie wrong, which you can kind of understand because of some of Marie's snide little comments like, is it just me, or does that water look cleaner? That's one of those ones that's like, I do not begrudge Debra with wanting to smack her in the head with a frying pan. I'm trying to remember, I think that episode's already happened, but yeah, if it has, you guys know what I mean. Now, she tries to frame Marie and does get caught, which leads to a whole little discussion about this whole obsession with Marie and the house being clean. It really affects her family. Like when they bring up how the kids used to run through like it was a bus station, and then Robert walks in and she's like, take off your shoes! Like, look what you're doing to your son. And then, of course, they bring up the covers on top of the couch. Here's the thing. I get using those covers when it comes to storing the couch, let's say in a storage, and they're not going to be used for a while, or you're putting them up in the attic for a while, or any other type of long-term storage, like, or even just traveling cross-country when you're moving. But all the time? It's asinine. And like, even they bring it up. It's like, it's not very inviting. And of course, Marie decides to take them off, and everybody's like, we get to sit on the couch? We get to sit on the couch! But they're freaked out a little bit, because it's not normal for Marie to take that out, and they're all like, who goes first? And that's the scene that's in the 6-year one. I'm taking the covers off. I just love the way that Peter Ball says the line, though. What do you say, Marie? We can sit on the couch? Like, even he can't even believe it. Now, it's ruined, of course, by the fact that Marie's still being her usual self when they're sitting on it, and then Ray goes to get a chip, and he's eating it. Marie's looking at him like the channel how she would be in that one Alka-Seltzer commercial. Drop one crumb and you're dead. And a crumb ends up getting dropped, and the boys all put the comforter back on. So one step forward, another step back. And within the episode, the status quo was reset. Of course, Ray is still really loving the Humm back, using a lot of it on stuff, and you can tell he's really going to love using this. Don't get too used to it, though, because we're not going to see Ray do this in too many episodes after that, which I kind of get because of the soft reboot, because, you know, sitcom writing. But it would have been nice every now and then to see Ray break out the Humm back. Now, I know there's one episode there that definitely would have made sense for, but it's an episode where he decides not to do it, which I kind of get. I'm going to touch on that subject in cleanliness when we get to that episode, but that's going to be a fun little one to talk about, especially because Ray's line, "I don't see the need." There's not really much else to say about this episode. Not much trivia about it. I haven't had I didn't check the DVD, see if there's any, because I don't have my notes open. I'm doing this whole freestyle with IMDb open. Nothing else in the trivia information other than what type of vacuum plays the Humm vac. In case you're all wondering, it is played by a rainbow vacuum. That's about it to say about this episode. Now, the next episode is one that I always watch. It's going to be an Easter-themed one. Definitely one of my favorites of the whole season. And it involves one of Marie's cookie canisters. Till next time, guys.